Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be alone as you age? It's a thought that many of us push to the back of our minds, perhaps because it feels too uncomfortable to confront. But what if I told you that this very truth, the reality of aging alone, is not something to fear, but rather something to embrace with wisdom and peace? As the sun sets and the shadows lengthen, there are quiet moments when we reflect on the deeper questions of life. What is my purpose? Who will I turn to as I grow older? Will I find myself isolated, or will I remain surrounded by loved ones? These are questions we often avoid, but they deserve our attention. Aging is inevitable, but how we prepare for it is not. In these moments of reflection, we begin to see the world not through the lens of fear, but of impermanence, a core teaching of Buddhism. All things are impermanent, says the Buddha. What is dear to us, we must one day part with. These words aren't meant to create dread. Instead, they invite us to prepare not just for the inevitability of change, but for the spiritual and emotional growth that comes with embracing it. It's easy to cling to the idea that our loved ones, our health, and our security will last forever. But how often does life surprise us, pulling the rug out from under our feet when we least expect it? In Buddhism, we are taught to release attachment, not to abandon our relationships, but to find peace within ourselves, regardless of the changing tides around us. The Buddha didn't want us to live in fear of loneliness, but in acceptance of the ebb and flow of life. So I ask you, what would it mean for you to truly accept the truth of impermanence in your life? How would you live, knowing that everything, including the relationships we hold most dear, may one day change? The answers to these questions may not be easy, but they are the key to preparing for a peaceful and fulfilled journey ahead. Let's dive into this conversation together and explore how the wisdom of Buddhism can help us navigate the complexities of aging, solitude, and change. 1. The illusion of security. We all long for a sense of certainty, a feeling that the people we love will always be there, that the roof above our head is permanent, and that the bonds we've nurtured will never fade. It's natural. After all, for most of our lives, we've built our world around family, careers, routines. These pillars give us comfort. They feel stable, solid. But the truth is, they're not. In Buddhist philosophy, this is the core of anicca, impermanence. Everything, no matter how seemingly reliable, is in constant flux, and yet we cling. We build our sense of safety on the idea that our partner will always be with us, that our children will come when we call, and that tomorrow will look like today. But that is not the nature of life. And when reality catches us off guard, the pain cuts deeper, precisely because we didn't prepare our hearts or our minds. Let me tell you the story of Elaine. She was 67 when her husband Jack passed unexpectedly. They had been married for over 40 years, inseparable, it seemed, to everyone around them. Jack was the one who handled their finances. He dealt with the bank, the bills, the paperwork. Elaine, by her own admission, never really asked questions. She trusted him completely. But when he was gone, suddenly, so was the map. The accounts were a mystery. Passwords, she had none. Insurance policies, she didn't even know if they were still active. One evening, she sat across from me at a small coffee shop, her hands trembling around a warm cup. "I never thought I'd have to figure this out alone," she whispered. "I thought we had it all worked out." Her voice cracked. "But now I don't even know where to begin." This is the illusion of security. We think permanence exists in what we own, or who we love, or the plans we've made. But Buddhism teaches us something radically different. Nothing is permanent. Not our bodies, not our relationships, not even the beliefs we hold about who we are. This isn't meant to scare us. On the contrary, It's a wake-up call. Impermanence is not a threat. It's a teacher. It urges us to wake up, to pay attention, to live fully in the now while preparing wisely for the unknown. The truth is, security doesn't lie in others. It lies in awareness, in mindfulness. It lies in being present, yes, but also in being informed. If you share your life with someone, know where the documents are, know what's in the accounts, know the passwords, know how to keep going if one day you must. This is not paranoia, it is practical compassion for yourself, for your peace of mind, for your future. As the Buddha once said, you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. The journey is ours to walk. Whether we walk it alone or with others, we must carry the wisdom to navigate the path. And so, don't wait. Don't let the illusion of security lull you into unawareness. Wake up, be present, be prepared. That is where true peace begins. 2. The story of the unexpected. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? We walk down a path, trusting that we know where it leads, only to find that the road bends in an unexpected direction. Sometimes, the change comes gently, a soft breeze guiding us along, but other times it hits like a storm, catching us unprepared, with no warning and no time to adjust. This is the nature of life, its unpredictability. And yet so often we ignore this simple truth. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises when we refuse to accept the dukkha, the inherent unsatisfactoriness of life. We expect life to go a certain way, and when it doesn't, we suffer. We cling to ideas of how things should be. But if we learn to embrace life as it is, in all its changeable glory, we can find peace, even in the most tumultuous of storms. Take the story of my friend Carol. She had been married to her husband Peter for over 30 years. They had built a life together, from raising children to building a home, to planning for their retirement years. Their lives were comfortable, secure, or so it seemed. Carol had always trusted Peter, not just with her heart, but with the practicalities of life. He handled the finances, the bills, the savings for their future. She didn't need to worry, or so she thought. Then one afternoon, Carol received a phone call that changed everything. Peter had collapsed unexpectedly while at work. The doctors tried, but he didn't make it. The shock of it left her numb. And yet, as the days passed, another, quieter realization began to settle in. Peter hadn't made all the arrangements. They had no will, no insurance policy she could rely on, and no contingency plan for their finances. All the savings Peter had been managing were scattered across various accounts she didn't even know existed. Carol was blindsided, not just by the loss of Peter, but by the realization that she had lived for so long in the illusion of security, thinking that everything was sorted out. But here she was, in her 60s, facing a new and unfamiliar world. In Buddhist terms, Carol had been living in ignorance, or avidya, believing that her path was clear, when in fact it had been shrouded by an unseen fog. This is where many of us find ourselves, blindsided by the unexpected, caught off guard because we assumed everything would remain as it always had. The impermanence of life is not just an abstract idea, it is a truth that touches everything. Our relationships, our health, our careers, and even our financial security, all of these things can change in an instant. But the beauty of Buddhism is that it does not leave us helpless in the face of these changes. It invites us to prepare, not in fear, but in wisdom, to be mindful of the present, to understand the transitory nature of everything around us, and to take steps to ensure that we are not completely unprepared when the unexpected arrives. Carol, after the shock had settled, began to take control of her life. She reached out to a financial advisor, learned how to manage her own accounts, and made sure to keep track of everything that had once been Peter's responsibility. She didn't want to live in fear or regret anymore. She chose instead to live with awareness of the impermanence of life and the need for self-sufficiency. Like Carol, we too must learn to face the unexpected with the eyes of wisdom, not fear. By embracing impermanence and understanding that nothing is guaranteed, we can move through life with greater resilience and peace. 3. Preparing for life's changes. Change is a constant companion in life, always by our side, often uninvited, but always present. As we age, the changes become more apparent. Our bodies shift, our minds slow, our circumstances evolve. But with these changes comes an important question. Are we prepared? Are we truly ready for the shifts that life will inevitably bring? In Buddhism, there is a concept known as samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It is the endless flow of existence, constantly changing, yet always the same. We go through phases: childhood, adulthood, old age, and each phase brings its own set of challenges and opportunities. But the key to navigating these transitions peacefully is preparation, not just for the body, but for the mind and the spirit. Let me share a story about my dear friend David. David had always been a rock, a pillar of strength for everyone around him. He was a successful businessman, healthy, active, and by all accounts, prepared for the future. Or so he thought. For years, he focused on building his wealth, ensuring he had a comfortable retirement. He saved diligently, invested wisely, and planned for the golden years that awaited him. But then in his late 60s, he received a diagnosis that would forever change his life. A chronic illness that would slowly take away his ability to care for himself. At first, David was in denial. "I've planned for this," he told me one evening over the phone. "I have money. I have everything I need." But as the illness progressed, David found that no amount of money could replace his health. And no matter how many investments he had made, they couldn't prepare him for the physical and emotional toll he would face. He hadn't prepared for the fact that he might lose his independence, or, more importantly, that he might need others to care for him. This, my friends, is the harsh reality of aging. We can prepare for many things in life, but we cannot escape the reality of our own limitations. This is why Buddhism teaches us not just to prepare physically, but to cultivate inner strength, wisdom, and resilience. True preparation comes not just from ensuring we have the right health insurance or the right investments, but from developing the ability to accept and flow with change. David's story serves as a poignant reminder. While it's essential to prepare for the practical aspects of life, like healthcare, finances, and living arrangements, there is an equally important task: preparing the heart and mind for the inevitable changes. Buddhism teaches us the importance of letting go, of releasing our attachment to the idea that we can control everything. We cannot control when we will face illness, the loss of a loved one, or any of life's unexpected turns, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to face life's changes with grace, mindfulness, and an understanding that impermanence is not to be feared, but embraced. David, after many months of struggle, began to practice meditation and mindfulness. He learned to accept the things he could not change and began to focus on what he could control, his mindset. He worked to cultivate a sense of peace in the face of uncertainty, and over time, he found that this acceptance made the challenges of his illness easier to bear. While he could not control his body's decline, he could control his reaction to it. He could choose to live each day with purpose, to focus on what still brought him joy, and to release the anxiety that came with worrying about the future. True preparation, as Buddhism teaches, is not just about securing material possessions or making plans for retirement. It is about cultivating a mindset that is flexible, accepting, and peaceful in the face of change. It is about preparing your heart to let go and your mind to embrace each moment, knowing that everything, both good and bad, is temporary. So let us ask ourselves, how are we preparing for the changes in our own lives? Are we preparing just our bodies and bank accounts? Or are we also preparing our minds and hearts to embrace the impermanence of it all? Life's changes are inevitable, but with mindfulness and acceptance, we can move through them with wisdom and grace. 4. The role of family and friends. As we walk the winding road of life, there's a belief we often hold close to our hearts, that our family and friends will always be there for us, especially as we age. They will be our support, our caregivers, our anchors in the storm. And yet, if we are honest with ourselves, we know deep down that life does not always unfold the way we hope it will. In Buddhism, we are reminded that clinging to expectations is a source of suffering. We cling to the idea that our loved ones will always be there, that our relationships will remain constant, that we can rely on others to take care of us when the time comes. But clinging, especially to the impermanent, only sets us up for disappointment. The Buddha teaches us that nothing in this world is guaranteed, not the love of others, not the health of our bodies, not even the stability of our relationships. Let me tell you the story of Martha, a woman in her early 70s who had always been the pillar of her family. She had raised 3 children, supported her husband through his career, and hosted countless family gatherings in her home. Her children had all grown up, and though they lived in different cities, Martha never questioned that when she needed them, they would be there. But the years passed, and with them came changes. Her health began to decline, slowly at first with mild aches and pains that she brushed off as the inevitable signs of aging. Then one winter, Martha fell and broke her hip. Suddenly, the reality she had never prepared for hit her like a cold wave. She needed help. Martha called her children, hoping they would be there to help her through this time. But one by one, they gave her excuses. Her son, living on the East Coast, had a busy job. Her daughter, with young children, couldn't leave her family. Even her youngest, who lived nearby, was overwhelmed with his own life. It wasn't that they didn't love her, it was simply that they had their own lives to manage, their own struggles, their own responsibilities. They had their own families to care for, and the reality of being there for Martha was not as simple as she had imagined. This is where Buddhism offers us a profound teaching. The Buddha encourages us to let go of attachment, even to the people we love. This doesn't mean we stop loving or caring for our family and friends, but it means recognizing that no one is truly obligated to fulfill our needs. We must learn to build our own inner resources so that when others cannot be there for us, we are still able to find peace and resilience. Martha, after much soul-searching, decided to embrace this lesson. She reached out to a local community of seniors, where she found companionship, support, and a sense of belonging. She also hired a caregiver to assist her with the daily tasks that had become difficult. It was a humbling experience for her, but one that opened her heart to the truth of impermanence. No one, not even family, can be our everything, and that's okay. Buddhism teaches us that true peace comes from within. We must build a foundation of self-reliance, not in the sense of isolating ourselves or refusing help, but in the sense of being prepared, emotionally and practically, to stand on our own when the support of others is not available. The Buddha called this self-sufficiency an understanding that while relationships are precious, our happiness and peace should not depend on them. The truth is, relationships can change. Our children may grow distant as they build their own lives. Our friends may be busy with their own struggles. But when we learn to cultivate our own inner peace, we can weather these changes without bitterness or sorrow. We can love others without clinging, knowing that their presence in our lives is a gift, not a guarantee. Martha's story is a powerful reminder that while family and friends can offer us love and support, we must never become so attached to them that we lose sight of our own inner strength. We are all ultimately responsible for our own peace and happiness. The Buddha teaches us that our relationships with others are important, but they are not the source of our happiness. That source lies within us. So, as we age, let us not place the burden of our happiness solely on the shoulders of others. Let us love deeply, but with the understanding that we are also responsible for creating a life that nourishes us from within. When we learn to rely on ourselves, to cultivate inner peace, and to accept the impermanence of all things, we can truly experience the beauty of life, no matter what changes come our way. 5. Finding peace in solitude. As we grow older, the idea of solitude can often be misunderstood. In a world that values constant connection, activity, and interaction, being alone can seem daunting. We fear being forgotten, overlooked, or left behind. The idea of aging alone can feel like a shadow that looms over us. But in Buddhism, we are taught that solitude is not loneliness. It is a space of deep introspection, growth, and liberation. The Buddha himself spent years in meditation alone, seeking enlightenment in the stillness of nature, away from the distractions of the world. And while the prospect of being alone might seem like a curse to some, it is in fact a gift, a chance to connect with our true selves, to explore the depths of our minds and hearts, and to find peace amidst the noise. Let me share the story of Henry, a man in his late 70s who had spent much of his life surrounded by people. He was married for over 50 years, raised children, and lived in a bustling neighborhood where friends and family were always close by. But after his wife passed away, Henry found himself living alone for the first time in decades. At first, the silence was deafening. The house, once filled with laughter and conversation, now felt empty. Henry told me once, his voice tinged with sadness, "I never thought I'd be this alone. I thought I'd always have someone with me." It's strange, you know, to walk into a house and not hear someone say, "Hi honey, I'm home." But as time went on, Henry began to notice something profound. The silence, which had initially felt like a heavy burden, started to change. It became a space where he could reflect, where he could sit with his thoughts without the need to fill every moment with noise. Henry began to meditate, sitting quietly in the same chair where he and his wife had shared many conversations. He began to reconnect with himself, to understand his thoughts, his feelings, and his desires in a way he never had before. This is the power of solitude. It offers us the chance to rediscover who we are beyond the roles we've played for others. It allows us to peel away the layers of expectations and responsibilities, to see ourselves not as a spouse, a parent, or a friend, but as an individual, whole, complete, and worthy in our own right. Buddhism teaches us that the self is not defined by our relationships or roles. We are not our jobs, our families, or our possessions. We are the quiet witness to our own lives, the observer of our thoughts and emotions, and the keeper of our own peace. When we embrace solitude, we begin to understand that our worth does not depend on the presence or absence of others. It depends on our ability to connect with ourselves, to find peace within, and to live in harmony with the impermanence of all things. As Henry spent more time alone, he realized that he was not truly alone. He was connected to the world in a different way through his thoughts, his meditation, his connection to nature. The quiet moments he once feared became the moments that nourished his soul. He no longer saw solitude as a void, but as a vast open space filled with possibility and growth. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to embrace the present moment, to be fully aware of each passing breath, each fleeting thought. Solitude gives us the opportunity to practice mindfulness in its truest form. When we are alone, we are free from the distractions of the outside world. We are free to experience life in its purest form, without judgment or expectation. We can simply be, and this is the greatest gift of solitude, the freedom to just be, to be still, to be present, to be at peace with who we are, just as we are, without the need for validation or approval from others. As the Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Solitude is the space where we can finally give that love and affection to ourselves. So, as we age and the people we once relied on may no longer be around, let us not fear the silence. Let us embrace it. In the quiet, we find the space to listen to our own hearts, to heal, and to grow. It is in these moments that we truly understand the value of our own presence. We are not alone. We are simply connected to ourselves in the most profound way. As we journey through life and grow older, it's easy to fall into the illusion that our loved ones will always be by our side, that our families will take care of us, and that our lives will continue without disruption. But, as we've seen today, life is full of change, sometimes unexpected, often impermanent. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that peace is not found in the constancy of others or external circumstances. Peace comes from within. And when we embrace the inevitable shifts of life, we cultivate a deep, unshakable sense of inner peace. So, let us not cling to the illusion that others will always be there to carry us. Instead, let us prepare ourselves, spiritually, mentally, and practically, for the changes that will come. Let us embrace solitude, not as something to fear, but as an opportunity for deep personal growth and reflection. Through solitude, we can find clarity, wisdom, and the space to connect with our true selves. It is in these moments that we truly understand the impermanence of life and the preciousness of the present. As we age, we must remember, true peace is within us. We cannot rely on external circumstances, relationships, or material things to provide lasting happiness. The journey ahead is one of acceptance and self-reliance, finding peace in the face of change, and cultivating resilience through mindfulness and inner awareness. Take a moment to reflect. What changes in your life are you resisting? Are you embracing the quiet moments, or are you afraid of being alone with your thoughts? What can you do today to begin preparing for the future with wisdom and grace? If you found value in today's message, take a moment to reflect on these teachings and subscribe to Quiet Wisdom for more insights on how to apply Buddhist philosophy to your everyday life. Join us on this journey toward inner peace and self-awareness. Remember, as the Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Let us give that love to ourselves and walk the path of wisdom and tranquility together.